Breaking tonight, with just 36 days until Election Day, the coverage of the candidates explodes into bizarre accusations, crazy claims, and what's becoming a dangerous divide between fact and fiction in the 2016 presidential race. Hold on to your seats, everybody. Welcome to the Kelly File. I'm Megyn Kelly. Over the past 48 hours, the larger media's love affair with Donald Trump officially ended. You know, some had still been there. It's over. You can take the L out of love because it's over. As they launched what appeared to be a coordinated assault against the Republican presidential nominee. Remember, this is a man who had provided the media with record ratings and readers. But never mind all that. Multiple media outlets are now hitting him with accusations of tax tricks, sexism, even belittling the U.S. troops. Not to be outdone, Trump's media allies are launching their own hit pieces on the Clintons, including sordid stories of a secret love child and fresh allegations that her health is failing and she's dying and she's keeping a secret a million times. All this comes as the vice presidential candidates prepare to take the world stage just 24 hours from now. That's got no ink today. It's like, who? What? This will be their first and only debate. And we're going to get to all of it tonight. We've got a jam-packed show for you this evening as we attempt to sort out all the madness, fair and balanced. In moments, we'll be joined by the panel of Chris Dierwart, Walt, Howie Kurtz, and Guy Benson on the media circus. Governor Mike Huckabee is here on Donald Trump's latest message to the voters. Plus, we'll take a look at a series of new polls with Larry Sabato. But we begin the evening with Trace Gallagher reporting from our West Coast newsroom on the headlines that have America in an uproar. And boy, does Trace have the toughest assignment today because he has to digest it all for you. Trace.
Megyn, it wasn't hard to miss the Trump taxes headline, considering it led most cable newscasts and is still among the top trenders on the major news sites. So by now, we all know Trump reportedly lost $916 million in 1995 and could have used that loss to offset paying federal taxes for 18 years. Trump isn't disputing the New York Times reporting. In fact, he calls it a brilliant use of tax law. And while much is being made of the Clinton campaign saying Trump avoided paying taxes for 2 decades, you have to read a bit deeper to learn that experts agree if Trump didn't pay federal taxes, it's because the law says he didn't owe federal taxes. Then there's the Associated Press story on members of the Apprentice TV show saying Trump was lewd and sexist. AP interviewed 20 former contestants and crew members, 8 of whom said they recalled Trump repeatedly making inappropriate comments, including which show members he'd like to sleep with. The Trump camp calls the story outlandish, and several former crew members told AP they had positive experiences with Mr. Trump. If the AP and New York Times didn't sufficiently stir the Trump pot, New York Attorney General Eric Schneiderman, a Democrat and Hillary Clinton supporter, today ordered the Trump Foundation to immediately stop soliciting charitable donations in New York because it's not legally registered in the state. The Trump campaign says it will comply, but has concerns about the AG's political motives. What's not getting as much play is a story on the front page of Drudge, alleging Bill Clinton has a secret son named Danny, a boy the former president allegedly fathered with an Arkansas prostitute in the 1980s. Back in 1999, Star magazine claims it checked the boy's DNA against the former president and proved they were not related. But now the accusation is that test was not accurate. The Daily Mail says it has learned President Obama was so concerned about Hillary Clinton's health, he set up a secret medical checkup for her at Walter Reed Hospital. But Clinton refused, fearing her leaking heart valve, arrhythmia, and a list of other problems would be exposed. For the record, the story is written by one of Hillary's fiercest critics, who might want to be careful because the way conservative website True Pundit tells it, Hillary was once so worried about what information Julian Assange might leak, she once allegedly inquired, quote, "Can't we just drone this guy?" A fact-check website says that claim is unproven. Megyn.
Thanks, Trace.
Sure.
So Chris Dierwart wanted to talk about some of that, and so did Howie Kurtz, Fox News digital politics editor and our host of Media Buzz. And Guy Benson wanted to come along for the party. He's the editor of townhall.com and a Fox News contributor. OMG. I'll just give it to you like that, Chris Dierwart. OMG. Secret love child. secret visits to Walter Reed or denied visits for some heart valve leak that has never been proven. $916 billion loss, hasn't paid taxes in 18 years, totally legal. We're supposed to be freaking out over it. And the want to have sex with the Apprentice staffers and says bad things in the AG. I mean, what?
I like unproven. It is also unproven whether or not Hillary Clinton is actually a lizard in a human suit. That has never been proven or disproven. Just let's face facts, America. No one has disproven that yet. So it's October. We expect a lot of hot garbage in October. We do expect that. This year feels different. And the reason that this year feels different is that both the candidates and the press are treating this as not just an election, but an apocalypse. That the outcome of this election will write the book for the history of humankind and all of America forever. And people are freaking the freak out. And that's how it goes.
Howie, listen, we shared some of the stories that the sort of right-wing media is doing on Hillary, but the vast majority of stories that were out today and over the weekend and over the past couple of weeks have been about Trump, hit pieces on Trump. Now, listen, that doesn't make them untrue, but they're hit pieces, and they are trying so hard. These same media organizations, many of whom could not give him enough favorable coverage during the GOP primary, are now like, what have we done? We're sorry. Let's go find the Apprentice contestants. More.
Well, they are throwing a lot of rocks, and it's turned into an avalanche. And look, just yesterday, Hillary Clinton's press secretary, Brian Fallon, told me the media are holding Donald Trump accountable, which means what they believe is that the press is making their case for them. Now, among these rocks and pebbles and boulders, you have legitimate stories like the New York Times tax story, although it's not a boulder because perfectly legal deduction for him to take. And then you have things like, where Donald Trump, as we've talked about, fuels the fire by talking about and tweeting about Miss Universe. But then you have the salacious stuff like these people at The Apprentice who said he engaged in locker room talk. It doesn't look good. It's like every interview he's ever done with Howard Stern, except he was an entertainer then. And then finally, Megyn, you have stories that are just unfair or totally out of context.
I don't know. You tell me whether the stuff with The Apprentice was, it can be excused, Guy, as he was an entertainer then, because the thing is, these people were seeking a professional position with the Trump organization. This is the reason why I included a line about what he said to one Celebrity Apprentice contestant in my debate question in August of 15. It wasn't just an entertainment show. It was also a show in which these young women in particular were seeking professional opportunities.
Yeah, although it's also reality television and Donald Trump. It'd be like someone showing up on The Bachelor and being like, oh my gosh, there are people drinking alcohol and having sex on this show. I can't believe it.
But do you think these women were signing up to be told that their boobs weren't big enough?
No, I don't think so, but I'm also, of course, I'm not going to defend him on that, but does it move a single vote, Megyn, at this point? We've heard it, starting really with your question in that debate. Ever since then, we know a barrage of ads from Hillary Clinton, all the nasty things he said about women. This is maybe just one more AP investigation into what he said around, basically the locker room or the water cooler at The
And why
Apprentice.
didn't they do it back in August of 15? I mean, it was highlighted in a debate question that was seen around the world. Where was the AP in August or September of 15? You tell me, Steyerwalt, why it's not until October 30, whatever it was, days before the election, that they come out with it.
Right, and Jeb Bush is somewhere making himself a malted milkshake and wondering the same thing. And so is Marco Rubio.
Wait.
And so are
Can I just interrupt you to prove your point? We
Yes.
have Ted Cruz,
Yes.
who took a moment from crying in the soup to say this. Actually, it was March 6th. Watch.
Listen, frankly, one of the reasons the media wants Donald to be the nominee is because the media knows Donald can't win the general, that Hillary would wallop him. And all of the attacks on Donald that the media is not talking about now, you better believe come September, October, November, if he were the nominee, every day on the nightly news would be taking Donald apart. I can't tell you how many media outlets I hear, have this great expose on Donald, on different aspects of his business dealings or his past, but they said, you know what? We're going to hold it to June or July. We're not going to run it now.
You're saying reporters have told you that?
Absolutely.
Go ahead, Chris.
Whether or not they planned it, I'm sure that is the single tear that rolled down Ted Cruz's face as he wrote the Facebook post in saying that internet regulation was reason enough for him to back Donald Trump or whatever. I'm sure it's hard. I'm sure times are sad. But the reality here is that they rode the wave. The press rode the wave of Donald Trump, clicks and coverage and celebrity, and did all of this stuff. And then now, and I think Cruz is very right about this, Now it's serious. Now it's October. Now this is a person who many in the press and many in the mainstream say is totally unacceptable. So they're just now starting to unload on him, and it's not going to end until the election.
Howie, what do you make of the charges that the New York Times is being hypocritical because they refuse to produce or to print these emails relating to that undermined sort of the left's argument on climate change because they said to do so would be illegal because they were illegally obtained, but they had no problem doing it to Trump?
I'm less concerned about that because the Times did do a front page story about those emails, even though they didn't print the emails. I see the greater hypocrisy as being the New York Times company didn't pay any taxes in 2014
well, there's
for the
a question
same reason
about
Donald
that.
Trump didn't, taking a legitimate deduction.
There's a question
but,
about that. Sometimes reporters are pushing back on that tonight, but go ahead.
Yeah, but it seems to me that, you have the sheer volume of stuff being thrown at Donald Trump, some of it legitimate, some of it not, some of it self-inflicted wounds, and it's just complete imbalance with the scrutiny being given to Hillary Clinton. And then you also have the cultural aspect here, Megyn. So it's not just news organizations, but it's celebrities, most of the late-night comics, Kimmel, Samantha Bee, John Oliver, Seth Meyers, Stephen Colbert, turning serious to attack Donald Trump, Jennifer Lawrence saying it'll be the end of the world if he wins the election. So there's an effort here, I think, and some of it's intentional and some not, to kind of paint him as being outside the bounds of acceptability.
Well,
that
that's the thing. I mean, Guy, all those people were always, Jon Stewart was never going to vote for Mitt Romney, right, back when he was doing the late night stuff. So that's not unusual to have the late night folks be against the Republican nominee. What's unusual here is that there's a lot of fodder with respect to Trump. And in his defense, he has spent his lifetime not as a politician watching every word he says. I mean, there's a lot of fodder because he's a fodder-producing machine. He's an unusual character, and he's a dynamic character, and a lot of that stuff on Howard Stern and so on was done with the intention of being a provocateur.
You could call him a tremendous fodder factory, in fact, Megyn. But yeah, and some of it you have to separate, and part of our job is to separate what's real and what's legitimate to talk about and what's silly season. There was one thing making the rounds today. I think Joe Biden attacked Donald Trump for supposedly demeaning veterans with PTSD, and Trump did nothing of the sort. They latched onto one word and turned it into a fake controversy. So it's kitchen sink time.
That's right. They're suggesting that Donald Trump took a shot at veterans suffering from PTSD. Everybody on our team looked at the tape. If you watch the soundbite in context, it doesn't appear at all that he's doing that at all.
Exactly.
In fact, he means to be paying a compliment to the strength of those in the room. In any event, there's so much to talk about. We barely scratched the surface. Great to see you all.
Thanks, Megyn.
Hot garbage. That'll be the theme of this evening's program is hot garbage. Grab a fork, pull on up. We serve it tasty on the Kelly File. Well, a lot of media outlets were today conducting breathless reviews of the U.S. tax code because they love the U.S. tax code. So did Donald Trump break the law? We'll take a look at that next and see whether anybody cares about the argument Hillary's actually making there. Plus, if you didn't see Donald Trump's Saturday night speech in Pennsylvania, whoa. We'll have that when Governor Huckabee joins us to talk about the road to the next presidential debate. And then a series of new polls have dropped in the last 72 hours, and Larry Sabato is here with the latest changes to the 2016 election map. And that is what really counts when we come back. Don't go away.
Are you sitting on more documents?
We're doing a lot of reporting around this, so we're going to keep going.
That's a yes. You have more documents besides the 3.
That may be a no comment.
A no comment.
That was New York Times reporter Suzanne Craig. She's the one who received a mysterious envelope of Trump's 1995 tax returns in her office mailbox in late September, which the Times then proceeded to publish. The backlash was swift, with some pointing out that the move may have been illegal, while others praised the Times for, quote, taking a risk. Trace Gallagher walks us through what was in that envelope. Trace?
As you mentioned, Megyn, the New York Times says the tax documents were mailed last month anonymously to a Times reporter who had previously done financial stories on Donald Trump. Each of the 3 pages had the names and social security numbers of both Trump and his then-wife, Marla Maples. The documents indicated that they had been sent from Trump Tower in New York City, which, of course, is very easy to fake. The Times then presented the tax documents to the lawyer and accountant who handled Trump's taxes for more than 30 years, the man who is now retired Wired says the papers are legit. The documents do not shed any light on Trump's net worth or his charitable donations. And as the Times points out, despite the billion-dollar loss, Trump's cash flow remained ample, though his company stock took a big hit. But under IRS rules, Trump net operating losses could be used to wipe out taxable income for the 3 years before the loss and the 15 years after. We should point out there is no proof that Donald Trump did not pay federal taxes, yet he calls his knowledge of IRS loopholes brilliant. Watch.
I was able to use the tax laws of this country and my business acumen to dig out of the real estate mess. You would call it a depression, when few others were able to do what I did.
But remember, this is the same Trump who has repeatedly said, quote, we can get rid of deductions, and a lot of bad people are not paying taxes, and hedge fund guys are getting away with murder. Now Hillary Clinton is trying to turn the tables.
He abuses his power, games the system, puts his own interests ahead of the country's. It's Trump first and everyone else last.
But according to tax experts, everything Trump has done is legal. In fact, according to Forbes magazine, the newspaper that broke this story, the New York Times, paid 0 taxes in 2014 and also got a $3.5 million refund. We should note, finally, the New York Times editor says that he would risk jail to publish Donald Trump's tax returns. Megan.
Trace, thank you. I want to turn now to Trump campaign senior advisor Boris Epshteyn and nationally syndicated radio talk show host and senior fellow at the New Leaders Council, Richard Fowler. Great to see you both. So, Boris, let's just skip over the discussion about whether this is legal, because it's perfectly legal what Trump did.
Of course.
And I don't know anybody who wants to pay more in taxes than they actually owe. I mean, just because they feel like it would be the morally right thing to do. Show me that person. Love to meet him. So let's just talk about where Hillary really seems to be going with the argument, which is, A, what kind of a brilliant businessman loses $900+ million in a year? And B, what about all the small contractors and stockholders who got completely screwed the year that he lost all that money, and he took advantage of it for years thereafter by not paying any taxes, but they were hung out to dry?
Well, a couple of things there. First of all, and not to get too boring for your viewers here.
Good policy.
But that $1 billion, that's not, or $916 million, that's not in 1 year. That's accumulated over a series of years. So it's not that he lost $1 billion.
He took the loss in 1 year.
He took the loss, and that's what you do in taxes. By the way, in 2009, GM took a loss of $16 billion.
Okay, but GM is not running for president as a brilliant businessman.
But the case of the matter is, the fact of the matter is that this is a very accepted practice. It's something that you do because you want your corporation to continue.
We're skipping that part because we're giving you that point. Let's move on to the two relevant points.
The reason you do that is because you want to continue as a business, because the government wants you to continue as a business, to employ people, and that's what Donald Trump has done.
You're not answering any of my points. The argument she's making, I'm giving you the opportunity to respond to the argument she was making everywhere today, which was, what kind of a brilliant businessman has losses like that, and he may have wound up okay, but he screwed the little guys, the contractors and so on who didn't get paid, and the stockholders who got paid out pennies on the dollar.
He didn't screw anybody. First of all, it's accepted knowledge that Mr. Trump has made a fortune twice. He made a fortune, then there was the real estate crisis.
Did he give it back to those people who got screwed?
Then there was a real estate crisis of the early 90s, and then he's made billions and billions of dollars since. And by the way, because he was able to rebound, he's employed tens of thousands of people since that time period, while Hillary Clinton hasn't created a job outside of the DOJ
Let's
and
pick
the
it up
FBI.
There. Richard, how about that last point? Because Trump was able to rebuild his business and employ so many people, and because every job you give actually creates several other jobs, you know, his defenders say, look, he worked the system, everything he did was perfectly legal, you would have done the same thing. He had no obligation to run around, once he rebuilt his fortune, paying off small businesses that didn't get paid pursuant to the law.
Well, here's the thing. I actually agree with Boris on that point. I think he used the laws to his advantage, but that's the problem with the laws and why we have to change them.
And we agree with that.
And if you look at taxes, if you look at Trump's tax plan, there's nothing about changing them. He doesn't talk about closing the loophole for hedge fund managers. He gives millions and millions of dollars to rich people like himself, while the little guy suffers. Even though he is creating jobs, he might create jobs for builders, he might create jobs for secretaries, but they are paying 38, 39, 42% in taxes, and when Donald Trump when he releases his tax returns, we'll find out he's only paying 5%, maybe 6%.
Is that a guess, Richard? And
I'm making an educated guess because Mitt Romney paid 14%, so he has to be paying less than Romney because he calls him an idiot. So I'm assuming he's paying less than
Well, we don't know how much Trump paid because he won't release the taxes, Boris. Go ahead.
Listen, as an attorney, let me tell you that, first of all, no one can guess about what Mr. Trump is paying. That's incorrect.
We'd like to just know. Maybe if he would release the returns, we would just know.
Look at Mr. Trump's tax plan. It's a lowering of all the tax brackets, a simplifying of the tax brackets. So I don't know where Richard is getting his points from, but it's not from the Trump tax plan.
All right, let me ask you this. Boris, I got to go, but I want to ask you this. Why is Trump out there tweeting things like a lot of bad people are not paying taxes and criticizing 50% of the country for not paying taxes and criticizing Obama's tax rate when he's not paying any taxes on his income?
Well, again, you don't know that, and that's just an accusation you're making, Megyn.
So why won't he release the tax returns?
He's admitting today that he took advantage of the tax laws, and Trump's defense to the New York Times story, Boris, as you know as well as I, has not been it's wrong and I didn't. They're wrong about what I paid.
She took a net operating loss. Donald Trump has paid millions and millions of dollars in wage taxes,
can we see
real estate taxes, etc. And then the most importantly, he is going to close loopholes.
Why can't we see it?
Let him finish.
Let me finish, Richard. Let me finish. He is going to close loopholes. He's going to end the carried interest loophole. That's exactly what's benefiting those hedge fund managers.
Okay.
He is going to close loopholes. He's going to end the carried interest loophole. That's exactly what's benefiting those hedge fund managers.
Okay.
He specifically has talked about that.
Richard,
and the Democrats, of course, are skipping that point because
the last word will be very short. The last will be very short, Megyn. It's pretty simple. Like Ronald Reagan says, trust but verify. First thing with the American people need to see is his tax return.
No, first thing is the emails.
Can I finish? We need to see his tax returns. Before he talks about a tax policy, let's see his tax returns. Every American president or presidential candidate has released his tax returns. We are now less than 40 days out, almost 40 days out, and we have not seen his tax returns.
What does he releases the emails to release the tax returns.
Thank you, guys.
What
has he got to hide?
I'll tell you what, it's like Trump is getting ripped for on the tax returns, the box, like he didn't check the box. I'd like to donate $1 to help with like some cause. I hate when they do that because you don't know, maybe you don't know anything about this particular charity, right? Like it's when you're in like the Duane Reade or the CVS and they're like, would you like to donate $1 to help dying animals? And you're like, no, I just want this pack of gum. So I was like, oh, the shame. But you don't know about the charity. Like I will look into that charity or my own charities and I will donate my own time. Okay, I had to get off my chest. I only donate to the no-kill shelters. Anyway. So coming up, WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange promised us that something big was coming involving Hillary Clinton. And just ahead, we're going to show you how we could be just hours away from learning what it is. Plus, Trump veers off course in an unscripted tirade against Hillary Clinton. And Governor Huckabee is next on how this message plays in the run-up to the next presidential debate.
I don't even think she's loyal to Bill. You want to know the truth. And really, folks, really, why should she be, right?
Well, we are now just 36 days away from deciding the next president of the United States. Less than a week to the next presidential debate, and one big question is which Donald Trump will show up to that contest. Will it be the one who sticks to the script or the one who had some of these interesting moments during remarks he made this weekend in Pennsylvania?
Right now you say to your wife, let's go to a movie after Trump. But you won't do that because you'll be so high and so excited that no movie's going to satisfy you, okay? No movie. I could be doing The Apprentice right now. I could be. Somehow, and I loved it, 14 seasons. How good was that? Tremendous success. And you got to watch your polling booths because I hear too many stories about Pennsylvania, certain areas. I hear too many bad stories, and we can't lose an election because of you know what I'm talking about. She's supposed to fight all of these different things, and she can't make it 15 feet to her car. Give me a break. Give me a break. Give me a break. She's got bad temperament. She could be crazy. She could actually be crazy. I don't even think she's loyal to Bill. You want to know the truth. And really, folks, really, why should she be, right?
So, in just a moment, Governor Mike Huckabee will explain how Mr. Trump can get back on message. But first, an update on the rally that just wrapped up moments ago with our own campaign, Carl Cameron. Carl?
Hi, Megan, from Virginia, where the vice presidential debate will be tomorrow. Tonight, Trump had his second of 2 rallies in Colorado, and not once today did he mention that the New York Attorney General had shut down his charitable foundation for failing to have ever requested the necessary certificates and approval to accept donations from outsiders, whether it's groups or individuals, in more than $25,000 a year. Never even came up. Instead, in a rally earlier today, he boasted, seemed quite proud of the fact that because of some $916 million worth of losses back in 1995, he was able to use the New York tax code in such a way as to not be required to pay taxes for as many as 18 years. And that's not even including 3 other instances in years before that where his losses were so big that he didn't have to pay taxes either. Clearly, rather than thinking it's a political liability, he thinks it's an asset. Watch.
I have legally used the tax laws to my benefit. My understanding of the tax code gave me a tremendous advantage over those who didn't have a clue about it, including many of my competitors who lost everything they had, never to be heard from again. Now they're gone, and I'm here, and I'm ready to turn things around for our country.
Trump's fighting back against Hillary Clinton and the Democrats, seizing on this for the last several days. There's no indication that it's going to stop. In fact, by all accounts, Tim Kaine's expected tomorrow to bring this issue up when he battles Mike Pence in the vice presidential debate, the only one of this cycle. Megan?
Carl, thank you. Well, my next guest says with just 36 days to go, the clock is ticking for Trump to pivot away from attack mode. Governor Mike Huckabee joins me now. He's a former presidential candidate and a Fox News contributor. Governor, great to see you. So many people came out and said, you know, Trump needs to stop that. Trump needs to get back on message. Trump shouldn't be imitating Hillary going down. You know, that kind of stuff is in large part, you could argue, what Trump would say, got him the nomination in the first place. He is different. He doesn't bow down to the party leaders. He doesn't sound like the others. He's not going to act like the others.
Well, look, who's criticizing him? It's the mainstream media, the New York Slimes, the Washington Compost, and all of their henchmen. And guess what? Trump supporters, they don't care what the media thinks. They hate the media. They don't trust the media.
But we're talking about
and Donald Trump to them.
He's got the supporters. They are with him. That is clear.
That's right.
They believe he's going to change things for them. But we're talking about, so that's the Trump supporters. But then we're talking about this group that's over here. They're like, I don't know about him. I don't like her either. I'm not sure what to do. So with those people, does that stuff help, hurt, or neither?
It may not help them, but when they really walk into that voting booth, here's what they believe. They think Donald Trump is a guy that is willing to march into hell with a water pistol on their behalf, and that Hillary Clinton is the one who is keeping the flames going down there. And so it's very clear to them that if they want any change in this country, if they want somebody to fight for them, their jobs, their future, their kids, it ain't going to be Hillary, because she is bought and sold by the donor class.
Well, let me ask you this, because Newt Gingrich was on Hannity on Friday night, and he had very different sounding advice for Trump. Listen to what he said.
You can't tweet at 3 o'clock in the morning, period. There's no excuse ever. Not if you're going to be president of the United States. So he's really got to decide and I think it's very important to understand this. If he's got to be himself, then he may well not win. If he's willing to grow into the role of president, then he may win. In fact, I think he will win.
Do you agree with that, or are you more in the field of let Trump be Trump?
I think Trump's got to be Trump. And look, there are things that when he does, I say, oh my gosh, I wouldn't have done that. But you know what? Trump's the nominee, and I'm sitting here talking to you. So, you know, let's just figure it out. The fact is, Donald Trump has gotten where he is by just being the most disruptive candidate we've ever seen. And some things he says are cringeworthy to those of us who have kind of lived in the mainstream and been in the flow. But then you step back and you realize that when he says certain things, it gets under the skin of the media, of the liberals, of the donor class, even some of the Republican establishment who, quite frankly, Megyn, are as guilty and as responsible for the nonsense we've had in this country as are the Democrats.
His supporters believe it connotes a certain fearlessness, which has really attracted them to him. Governor, great to see you.
Good to see you, Megyn.
Joining me now with more, Julie Roginski, Democratic strategist and Fox News contributor. Julie, let's pick it up on that last point. I mean, and I'm not talking about just the Trump supporters. There is a group in the middle that doesn't like the Washington establishment, that believes she's part of it, that says, I know he's not politically correct, he says some bad stuff, but like, I want somebody to bust the system up. And isn't the guy who's going to go mock her falling down when she has pneumonia that guy?
I don't know. You know, let's put partisanship aside and talk about the fact that the clip you played is a man in the full throes of a nervous breakdown. That, coupled with his Alicia Machado 3 a.m. tweet storm, is not somebody who's even remotely got the temperament to be the mayor of a large city, never mind the leader of the free world. To mock an opponent for her, this is not the first time, by the way. He mocked a New York Times reporter for his disability. Now he's mocking Hillary Clinton for having pneumonia. To talk about the fact that she was maybe crazy. I've never seen such projection.
And that she's apparently not loyal to Bill.
Who knew? Who knew? I mean, but isn't that projection? Isn't this absolutely, this is like Psych 101. This is somebody projecting their own issues onto another person. And that's
not transference, technically.
Well, you know what? We'll have to ask a real psychiatrist about that. I'm not qualified to say it. What about the stuff that came out with
the apprentice and the women and all that? And actually, there was another woman came forward, a reporter from the Philadelphia Inquirer. Pennsylvania is a big state this election. She says, back in the 1980s, Trump called her probably the worst word you can use about a woman. Here it is. Listen.
I was working in the Wall Street office of the Philadelphia Inquirer, and I got a phone call. The woman said, hold for Mr. Trump, and then Mr. Trump began to yell at me. He told me I had for brains. He told me I worked for a newspaper, and he said, what sort of was I writing? I was stunned. He hung up. He called my boss in Philadelphia, and he treated my boss to the same sort of rant. But then he added that he referred to me as the C word, a word I will not use, Michael, because in my opinion, it's the worst word in the English language to refer to a woman.
Julie.
Well, I'd say I'm surprised, except that we've all been on the receiving end of some of those words from him and his supporters, and so it doesn't shock me whatsoever. Look, here's the reality. I don't care if you're a Democrat or Republican. Those are policy differences. This is about somebody who's temperamentally unfit, and I would say psychologically unfit, to be leader of the free world. If somebody can get to him in this way with the release of a tax form or by criticizing his stance in Miss America, what's Vladimir Putin going to do to him when there's a real 3 a.m. phone call and he has to answer it? This is somebody who's incredibly unfit psychologically to hold the highest office in the land. I would say the highest office in the world.
Good to see you.
Great to see you, Megyn.
Well, WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange was on the Kelly File just a few weeks ago suggesting a big October surprise. And up next, we'll detail the news conference he has scheduled just hours from now. Plus, Larry Sabato is here on a series of new polls and what they mean for the next couple of weeks. 1 month to go, folks. Developing tonight, big news involving the Democratic presidential nominee. It's just over 5 weeks ago that WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange appeared on this show and promised a big surprise concerning Hillary Clinton, one he said could change the election. Tonight, reports have surfaced that the announcement could be imminent. Trace Gallagher reports from our West Coast newsroom. TG?
And Megyn, Julian Assange was supposed to make the big announcement tomorrow on the balcony of the Ecuadorian embassy in London, but because of safety concerns for Assange, that has now been moved to in Berlin to do a video presentation. It will now be video. Predictions that Julian Assange has information that will end the presidency of Hillary Clinton might be premature, but history shows that he certainly has the power to move the needle. Just before the Democratic National Convention in August, the release of 20,000 internal Democratic National Committee emails showed the DNC appearing to conspire to prevent Bernie Sanders from winning the nomination. The revelation led to the resignation of DNC Chair Debbie Wasserman Schultz. In all, WikiLeaks has published some 10 million leaked emails, including information about Guantanamo Bay prisoners, operations in Iraq and Afghanistan. And back in August on the Kelly File, Assange was asked about the latest leak. Watch.
Do you believe the information in your possession could be a game changer in the U.S. election?
I think it's significant. You know, it depends on how it catches fire in the public and in the media.
And not only does a former Trump campaign advisor believe that this will catch fire, Roger Stone thinks it'll spell the end of Hillary Clinton's campaign. Stone tweeted, quoting, "I have total confidence that WikiLeaks and my hero Julian Assange will educate the American people. Lock her up." The latest leaks are expected to drop at 10 a.m. in Berlin, which is 4 o'clock in the morning Eastern time. Megan.
We shall see. Trace, thanks. Well, this potential October surprise comes as a series of new Quinnipiac polls show Hillary Clinton, for the most part, regaining lost ground across some key battleground states. Mrs. Clinton is gaining now in Florida, now up 5 points on Donald Trump. She's also ahead in North Carolina by 3 points. In Pennsylvania, a hotly contested, they say it's purple state, but it's really blue. It voted for President Obama in the last 2 elections. Mrs. Clinton is up by 5 points. But it's Trump who's winning the Buckeye State right now, Ohio. And my next guest points out that Ohio has voted for every White House winner since 1964. Joining me now, the director of UVA's Center for Politics, Larry Sabato. Larry, good to see you. So what do you glean from this latest round of polling?
Well, the news is very, very good for Hillary Clinton. She actually is in a new poll up 11 in Colorado, which one poll had tied. She's up by wide margins in 3 national surveys from CBS, CNN, and SurveyMonkey. So let me tell you, I think she got a real boost from the first debate, and that has actually grown over time. Let me note, Megan, that these polls were not taken after the New York Times revelation about Trump's taxes. So it may have had some effect, and we'll have to wait till the next round of polls.
So, I mean, does it cause you to change your electoral map? Because you started to change it a little bit more favorably towards Donald Trump when she was having her terrible week and a half.
Well, I want to see if these changes are durable, Megan. Remember the Democratic convention bounce that Clinton got? It was enormous, but it faded. And the question I have is, as we get toward Election Day, are we going to look back at the first debate and say that was the key turning point in the general election? Or are we going to say, no, it was changed by debate 2 or debate 3 or some outside event or revelation
like WikiLeaks
that might transform it?
I mean,
like
now, Julian
WikiLeaks,
Assange has produced before. It's not all hyperbole with this guy. How big a factor could that be?
Well, you know, they haven't shared the emails with me, Megan. I'm very disappointed. But I can't tell you until I see what they have. Who knows? I don't think it's the end of her candidacy, as somebody predicted. I think that's a little extreme. But we'll see what they have.
Yes, we will, and then we will talk more about it. Larry, before I let you go, just put a number on it. What percentage chances for Hillary and Donald?
I think the chances for her are between 60 and 65%. For him, 35 to 40%.
Wow. Larry, great to see you.
Thanks, Megan.
Hillary Clinton facing backlash from her own party following newly uncovered audio in which she's talking about Bernie Sanders supporters. We'll tell you what Bernie's saying about it and talk about the alleged love child. 2016. Next.
From the world headquarters of Fox News, it's The Kelly File with Megyn Kelly.
Well, Hillary Clinton is taking heat from the Trump campaign over some newly uncovered audio from a private fundraiser last February where she is heard talking about millennial voters. Listen.
They're children of the Great Recession, and they are living in their parents' basement. If you're feeling that you're consigned to, being a barista or, some other job that doesn't pay a lot and doesn't have much of a ladder of opportunity attached to it, then the idea that maybe, just maybe, you could be part of a political revolution is pretty appealing.
Joining me now, correspondent Griff Jenkins, who's at the site of tomorrow's big vice presidential debate with more on what millennials are saying about this election. Hey, Griff.
Hey, Megan, consider this. 69 million of those millennials will be eligible to vote this November 8th, making up 31% of the whole electorate. In 2008 and 2012, they were roughly almost 20% of all the votes counted. So how does Secretary Clinton really stand with them, particularly after calling them basement dwellers and insulting them. In the latest Fox News poll, she's at 44%, with Trump following at 28%. But Gary Johnson, the Libertarian Third Party, is at 17%, Jill Stein at 8%. And in Fox News exit polling earlier this year, Bernie Sanders, this is when these millennials were feeling the burn, was beating her by a whopping 71% to 28%. Our viewers will remember that Barack Obama ran away by more than 2-to-1 margin in the election. Clearly, Clinton is underperforming. So I hit the campus behind me to find out how these millennial students feel. Take a look.
College tuition and health care for young people and for all citizens. Those are things that millennials care about.
We physically, as a nation, cannot afford 4 more years of the same liberal policies that have doubled our national debt.
I want to, see how they're going to create jobs.
The possibility of climate change getting out of hand.
I really feel strongly about equality.
National security and terrorism, the main things that are important to me.
I'm undecided. It'll come down to this debate.
When I was senior in high school, I figured I can agree with Republicans on some things and Democrats on others. It blew my mind, and I think there needs to be a middle ground, and there needs to be someone in a middle ground that can get something done.
Do you think millennials will go out and vote this election?
Yes, I definitely do.
I think this election has really brought us out of our voting shells.
I'm going to vote for the candidate who I feel like is going to be positive and bring a lot of unity to this country.
Secretary Clinton called millennials basement dwellers living at home with mom and dad.
Every politician is not perfect.
These two candidates especially, I feel like, have played a lot of their emotions and feelings out on social media.
Griff?
So I guess we'll find out what happens online on Snapchat. Megan?
Thank you. She did not say basement dwellers, but she said they're in the basement, unhappy. We'll be right back. So a word on Bill Clinton's alleged love child. It was reportedly disproven back in 1999 thanks to DNA. And now Roger Stone says there was no DNA test, but he says a lot of things. See you tomorrow.